Hello, this is Robert from DSP Plug. So, what about looking into the future? What's something really great? Hello, this is Robert from DSP Plug. So, floating cities. That is a really great idea in many ways, and it has its downside too. And one of the upsides would be is being immune to weather, immune to natural and environmental disasters. That's excellent. And moreover, with very simple mechanisms, both power and the right amount of moisture and heat can be created. And interestingly, when I look back to Egypt and I think about the obelisk, the long stones, the pillars, I think I think those obelisks, especially if larger, could be controlled by DSP. Their proximity, uh, dependent upon the mineral, of course, it will get to a different heat in the sun, and differing heats and exposure to those varying heats creates a chemical reaction which can create moisture. So, an oasis, a plateau is possible on a floating city, and arable soil certainly could be installed as well. Um, in the way of the interlocking shape, after looking at interlocking blocks, I would choose a crown shape. Reason why is, as far as I can tell, a crown shape of an interlocking cap, kind of like a muffin baking tray. You know, it's a cap, and inside there's a carefully artificially made carbon, which can be controlled by electromagnetivity, and that would mean that you would use a special mathematical program controlling electromagnetivity, utilizing many decimals and digital signal processing. And what that would do is create an instant basement. It would create a recess or fill the gap, and it would all have to be done electromagnetically with physics. And that is totally possible, but it has to be an activated product that is made artificially and can be controlled within artificial constraints. Now, the crown shape that I chose, in my opinion, has the most connection points. When you look at interlocking blocks, what decides the proper shape decides the amount of connection. Uh, in general, the crown shape provides the most connection to the most pieces, and what that means is connectivity, and that would make it an ideal shape so as to fit this carbon on, and ultimately put cities and roads upon it, and they could be quite gigantic. It's the artificial creation of this carbon and the recycling of it, the recreation of the product that would define the ground, as it were. But of course, being immune to natural disasters, being immune to typhoons and hurricanes, by the ability to levitate and perhaps even move would be excellent. You'd need some kind of flying car, totally plausible, but there again, the price, the cost, and would it be like as in a secure community, perhaps? But electromagnetic levitation could certainly make it plausible to hold this space above the ground. There is nothing implausible about that, but it would be as though it were like the electromagnetic cars, as it were, that I described. So as not to be a phenomenon which can be employed by people An electromagnetic force and its polarity is pretty much open game if it's exerting a harmonic, like a pulse, a signal. If it's not on a certain frequency, it can be utilized to propel anything. And I realize we're not all scientists, but some of us could potentially harness that, do anything with it, send rockets, missiles, bullets, what have you. It's a mechanism which can be employed. So equally dangerous, and it would have to be something designed, encoded, carefully encrypted, so as to dynamically decide the polarity and the timing. And I imagine that would be a military, probably a naval, aeronautic endeavor. However, cities like this with electromagnetic flying, hovering cars, if you will, slightly controlled by a system which reduces risk and eliminates crash, would make it entirely plausible to live above the Earth. In my opinion, having larger conservation areas and also larger forestries and more farms would certainly allow there to be a great deal better food. And of course, it also provides the option of historically preserving some cities, making them nice locales to visit, and that would be exceptional. It would provide kind of a duality, a getaway, a vacation spot, and that would be very exciting. Without a doubt, in my opinion, it would be a challenge to run the civilization upon one. It may seem like a social control experiment in many tenses, but nonetheless profitable, yes. Economically viable, yes. Would it be very expensive? Maybe. But nonetheless, less effort to house people, less risk, and I'm sure in the future some kind of shield mechanism could be developed and employed. In the way of energy creation, what I would probably do is have that same electromagnetic pulse with a big pad on the bottom of it that keeps going up and down. And what that is exerting pressure. It's turning some kind of piston, and it keeps turning the crank for a gigantic turbine, or many sets of turbines, so as to create enough power to fuel the city. And then water creation and plumbing, of course, too. That would be quite a difficult task. But all of it is very plausible, and perhaps it would be within the next 1,000 years, which we might see a levitating city. Not so much of a floating city. I think it would be levitating, and maybe that's not the same thing because it wouldn't move around and such. It could be programmed to do that. This is Robert from DSP Plug, talking about the virtues and the interesting application of digital signal processing, applied science, and math. Bye-bye.